The Emerald Tablet, Chapter 12, Guys and Telegnosis. Benjamin, Gary, and Andy entered the dining hall and walked over to the table where Heidi and Iva already sat. The cleaning lady, Lena Teesag, was sitting down talking to them. She looked at the boys, then got up from the table and walked away. Benjamin decided not to say anything. It had been a long day of classes, and he didn't feel like arguing with Heidi about private conversations with Lena. "I'm starving," Heidi exclaimed once the boys reached the table. "Is anybody else super hungry tonight?" "I sure am," Gary agreed. "I think it was all that telekinesis we were doing." "Well, I don't know how much doing I was doing," Heidi said, "but at least I still tried. But obviously some of us are pretty good at telekinesis, huh?" "I'm just glad I beat Ryan in the Panthers class," Benjamin laughed. "Can you imagine losing a kinesis combat to him?" He glanced over the next table where Ryan and Jonathan sat. Ryan immediately looked up and glared back. Benjamin looked away. "You think he can read my mind?" he quietly asked Heidi. "I don't think so," she replied. "I can sense his thoughts, though, and right now he's not even thinking about Iva. All he's thinking about is telekinesis." "So what's up with you and telepathy, anyway?" he audibly asked her. "I don't know," Heidi said. "I always just thought my telepathic abilities were normal. Well, I mean normal for people like us." "It's definitely not normal to be able to see 5 statues on some island I've never heard of," Andy said. "Easter Island? What's that? Does the Easter Bunny live there or something?" "Well, I'd never heard of Easter Island before either," she said, but there it was in her mind, plain as day. "So can you read all of our minds right now?" Andy asked. "Without the alliance bond?" Benjamin added. "Well, I guess I could if I wanted to," Heidi replied, "but over the years I've gotten pretty good at filtering out and ignoring most everything unimportant. I still have a hard time blocking really strong thoughts or emotions, though." "So what am I thinking about?" Andy tested her. "Well, duh," Heidi replied. "You're thinking about how you were showing off in telekinesis when you were spinning the rock around and around." "I was not showing off," Andy protested. "I was just testing my skill level." "Okay, how about now?" "You're thinking about teleportation and how you think Asia Philippa is hot," Heidi replied. "I am not," Andy exclaimed. "Oh, really?" Heidi said. "I think you are." "Okay, maybe the thought crossed my mind, but it wasn't my main thought. Do you want me to tell you who is?" Heidi asked sweetly. Andy turned bright red, looked down at his menu, and then quickly said, "No, that's okay. I believe you can read our minds, so you can go ahead and start filtering again, okay?" Gary picked up the kinetic orb Benjamin had brought in with him. "Hey, this is cool." Amazingly, Gary levitated it in front of him and began to solve it, starting with the blue phase. "You have to start with the centerpieces of each phase," Andy told him. "That's the way to solve it." Gary ignored Andy, instead concentrating on the sphere. At first it looked like nothing, but then it began to take shape, one phase, then the next. As Gary continued solving it, his pace quickened. Before long the orb was complete. Gary levitated it back down on the desk once again. "Wow, that was great," Benjamin said. "Have you done it before?" "Are you kidding?" "I don't even know what it is," Gary said. "I'm just pretty good with games and riddles and stuff like that." He looked at Andy. "And you don't have to start with the centerpieces." "That's how Benjamin said you have to solve it," Andy replied. "No, what I say is that's the way you should solve it," Benjamin replied. "Yeah, that's right. The way I chose is not the minimum number of moves, but it's the most mathematically straightforward algorithm," Gary explained. Classes the next day consisted of telegnosis and science. True to her word, Iva had already met the telegnosis teacher, Kyriaki Eleni, and was already calling her just Kyrie. And as Andy had predicted, Iva was definitely the teacher's pet. What Iva hadn't bargained on was anyone else being as good as she was at the subject. "Jonathan Sheehan," Iva said at lunch, "I can't believe he has such strong telegnostic powers." "I'm sure yours are better," Heidi replied. "But he's a guy," Iva replied. "So?" Gary asked. "So you all heard Kyrie. It's pretty unusual for a guy to be any good at telegnosis," Iva replied. "I have a little bit of skill," Benjamin said. "Nowhere near my skill level," Iva replied. "But for her to single him out in class, I just can't believe that." She looked down at the menu. "I'll take the fish sandwich." "Fish?" Andy said. "But I thought you were a vegetarian." "It's only fish, Andy. It's not real meat," Iva snapped. "And if I want to eat a fish sandwich, I will, and I don't need you saying anything about it." Andy opened his mouth to reply, but quickly shut it. Anyone looking at Iva could tell she wasn't in the mood for teasing. "Hey, Iva," Jonathan Sheehan called out from the next table, where he was sitting with Ryan and 2 girls from their homeroom, Julia McFarlane and Sunita Manvar. Benjamin felt Iva tense up through the bond, but she pretended she didn't hear him. "Hey, Iva!" Jonathan called out again. Iva finally turned to look. "So how does it feel to have a guy be better than you at telegnosis?" Jonathan asked. Iva's face flushed red, and Benjamin felt her anger through the alliance bond. "Hey, Jonathan!" Andy called back. "How does it feel to have to cheat at telekinesis?" "I don't cheat at telekinesis, and you know it," Jonathan called back. "That's not what I heard," Andy replied. "Yeah, well, you just wait until the next kinesis combat," Jonathan replied. "I'll stomp you." After science class that afternoon, Benjamin couldn't believe Mr. Burton, the science teacher from back in Virginia, was really intelligent. "Okay, I've never seen Mr. Burton grow an extra set of arms like Mr. Hermes did today," Benjamin said. "Well, of course he wouldn't," Heidi said. "Not around humans." "Not all intelligence can grow and regrow limbs, you know," Gary said. "But I can. I had to regrow my pinky finger when I was little." "You're kidding, right?" Andy asked. Gary stuck out his hand in proof. "It looks normal to me," Heidi said. "Trust me, it's not. I remember I just had my 7th birthday, and my parents took me to the aquarium to celebrate. I knew I wasn't supposed to, but I stuck my hand in a small shark tank when no one was looking. You know, just to see what would happen," Gary explained. "You stuck your hand in a shark tank just to see what would happen? What, are you nuts?" Andy asked. He looked at Gary like maybe it was his brain he needed to regrow. "I guess so, because before I knew it the smallest shark of the bunch swam over and bit off my little finger. My parents totally freaked out. They quickly wrapped it up and hurried me out of there. They never said anything to anyone. I mean, don't people get sued over stuff like that? But then after a month or so it started to grow back. Once it started, it happened pretty fast. It only took about a week. And here it is." Gary wiggled his pinky. "It was pretty cool when Mr. Hermes grew his hair," Iva said. "Not as cool as when Heidi changes her hair color, though." Heidi smoothed her now brown curly hair down. "Yeah, Julia McFarland keeps asking me if I can teach her how to do it. Frankly, I'd like to know how. It's been stuck this brown color for 2 days now, and I can't get it to change back."